repeat the key phrase that we hope you walk away with. Call and response. And call and response is really part of African American culture, and it connects back to slavery and even further, actually, to West African traditions. In a word, it's a coping mechanism. In a sense, it allows people to feel a sense of community and a call and response, right? If you're calling, someone actually responds back. It does originate in work songs during slavery. And if you think about how horrific the conditions were, it would make sense that something like that would be needed. I have a quote from Frederick Douglass's autobiography, and he talks about a slave named Denby who was being whipped. And he didn't like it, obviously. He tried to run away from the taskmaster. And he ran into a river. And the master said, on the count of 3, if you're not back here, he took out his musket and was aiming it at Denby. Denby didn't come back. And as Douglass, as a young boy, remembers this scene, he says that Mr. Gore, that's the name of the master, raised his musket to his face, taking deadly aim at his standing victim, and in an instant, poor Denby was no more. His mangled body sank out of sight, and blood and brains marked the water where he had stood. It certainly gives you an idea of the graphic nature of slavery. If you look at some of the statistics and the conditions, you get a further picture of what was going on. According to historian Peter Stearns, as many as 25 million Africans were ripped out of Africa and brought to the New World, the Caribbean and the American South. Conditions were pretty brutal. I have a list that's pretty long of the working conditions. I'm not going to read all of them. But certainly, work hours, 15 to 16 hours a day during harvest time, or it could go even further, sometimes 16 to 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when you're worrying about workload here at Worcester Academy, think of that. Also, hard driving, in quotations, was quite common, and it consists of working slaves past their physical capabilities, and that was regarded as normal. Children were also put to work, and then, of course, as I mentioned with Douglass, the punishments. Punishment was an inherent part of the slave system. Not only was it physical punishment, but mental. Sexual abuse and other things like this were part of the system. Unpleasant topics. In this environment, music was a refuge. Again, that sense of community. You sort of picture yourself in that environment, feeling totally alone, isolated, hopeless. Call and response was one way to reaffirm your identity with the group. And again, as I mentioned, it's a throwback to West African tradition, so that again solidifies a sense of belonging. A sense of belonging, a way to get it out of your mind, really. The conditions, the drudgery. I'm sure you've all had to do tedious work at some point in your life, painting a house, whatever it might be. You're in the military, marching for miles. You do call and response then too. Left, right, all that stuff. That's call and respond. This sort of style made its way into the black church as well. When the preacher gives a sermon, you're not supposed to sit there idle. You respond back. And certainly it's made its way into jazz, as jazz musicians usually refer to as trading floors or something like that. That call and response that we demonstrated tonight. It also has made its way into other popular music, which Mr. Bode will be touching on in his presentation.